Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Welcome everybody to the Q1 2024 meeting of the California Water Quality Monitoring Council. My name is Nick Martirana. My pronouns are he, him, and thanks for attending today's meeting. We'll go ahead and get it kicked off in respect for all yours time. Oops. First, a little bit of housekeeping. This meeting is being recorded, so please mute your mics until you're ready to speak. It is helpful if you can come off camera and you feel comfortable doing so when you are speaking. That kind of helps with the recording and helps put a face to the voice. I'm going to start off with a roll call for the council members, just going down by sector. And then for anybody that's not a council member, please use sorry, I don't know why I put Zoom participant list. It's probably from my own brain. But can you put it in the chat, your name and affiliation, so I can kind of keep track of who's attending for notes purposes. And then we'll do a quick agenda review and finalize the action items. So with that, I'll start with council roll call. First, I'll start with the Cal EPA representative. Greg.
Oh, that's me. Sorry. I'm Greg Gerhardt, and I'm now sitting in this co-chair position as Karen Mogus has promoted to a new position. So I've been the alternate co-chair for a while. It's good to see you if I haven't seen you in a while. And let's have a good meeting.
Thanks, Greg. And for CNRA, Jen, I saw you on the participant list. She was. Oh, she's there. I'll come back to Jen. I think I see her on the list. I mean, she's just muted.
I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Jen.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome to kind of your first in-person-ish meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and next, drinking water.
Hi, this is Andrew Altsvogt with Division of Drinking Water.
Hey, Andrew. And I saw Christine as well. Public health.
Hi, this is Anthony Chu with the Department of Public Health. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Anthony.
Yes, look forward to having a good meeting.
Yeah. The regulated community publicly owned treatment works.
Morning, everyone. Lorianne Fono with BACWA representing the publicly owned treatment works community.
Hi, Lorianne. Publicly owned regulated community stormwater.
Good morning, everyone. Grant Sharp with Orange County Public Works, representing regulated stormwater.
Hi, Grant. The agricultural community.
Hello, good morning. Mark Cady, California Department of Food and Agriculture.
Hey, Mark. Anybody from the community monitoring groups? I know Helen doesn't usually work Fridays, but not sure if her alternate is here. Not seeing her. Okay. Public sector.
Good morning, everybody. Ray Heimstra with Orange County Coastkeeper, representing the public.
Right. Science community, non-academic.
That would be me, Steve Weisberg. I'm here.
Steve's here. And the science community, academic.
Krista Kamer, CSU Coast. Here.
Krista, good to see you. Water supply.
Good morning, everybody. This is Peter Vroom, San Diego Public Utilities.
Hi, Peter. Good turnout today. And then our new US EPA non-voting member is here, Eric Dubinsky. Did you want to pop on and introduce yourself? It's been a while since Terry retired.
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Eric Dubinsky. I am with US EPA Region 9. I'm in the Water Quality Standards and Assessment section. This is my first meeting. I'm taking over from Terry Fleming. I work with California on 303D listing issues, TMDLs, and water quality standards, as well as monitoring. I'm also our regional beach program coordinator. So I coordinate our beach funding program here at EPA as well.
Well, welcome, Eric. Thanks. It's great to have you.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Great. And nice to see everybody's faces in 2024. It's the first time I've gotten to see you all. And this is a great turnout. I appreciate you all making the time today. And like I said before, anybody that's not a council member, please go ahead and put your name and affiliation in the chat. As far as the agenda review, we have a pretty abbreviated agenda. This was supposed to be an in-person meeting. We try to have 2 in-person meetings a year that have a kind of a longer form to them, but with the federal or the state budget letter that came out late last year, early this year, travel's been restricted to mission critical work, and so that we cannot provide funding for those that don't live nearby to travel, and we cannot travel ourselves. So we've had to pivot into mostly these virtual formats, which is a more abbreviated schedule, just because we understand that virtual meetings can be extra fatiguing. So we have 2 items beyond our normal items. So we're going to finish up this housekeeping item. We'll go into a public forum where people from the public that might have joined that have issues they wanted to bring up that aren't on the agenda. And then we will work into our updates where we'll be a chance for our council members and alternates to provide any updates to each other. I'm hoping that Karen Mogus can jump on probably around 10:30. We'll see how the timing goes, but hopefully she was planning on jumping on to kind of describe and say thank you, I think, and just describe the process moving forward, although Greg did mention it. And then we'll move on to our first item, item 4, sorry, that is focused on kind of council member engagement, and then we'll wrap things up with a update from our molecular methods work group at Susie Throw, and then think about kind of planning for our June meeting. Anybody have any issues with the agenda or want to make any adjustments before I move on? Go ahead and raise your hand in the participants list if you do, or speak up. Okay, not seeing any. Great. Action items, I distributed those with the agenda and notice earlier a couple weeks ago. I didn't receive any comments, so those are going to be final. If you do go through them and find something that you wanted to add, just please reach out to me. So moving on to item 2, this is the chance for any members of the public that want to speak to the council on items that are not on the agenda. If you have an item, please go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll call on you and come off mute and address the council. Okay, not seeing any. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. So member and director updates. I'll go ahead and start with the members. Maybe I'll just start in the same order I went the first time for ease. Do we have any updates from Cal EPA or the water boards, Greg?
Maybe just the obvious that Karen Mogus is now the Chief Deputy Director at the State Water Board, overseeing some of the other divisions that she's not coming out of. So it should be interesting to watch her and to hear back from her as she goes forward. I'll be the co-chair until a replacement at the Division of Water Quality is chosen to be the Deputy Director there. And I don't know of any other updates from Cal EPA or the water boards.
Thanks, Greg. And we'll give Karen a chance to potentially, we'll see how the timing works out. It might be a little off schedule, but she might have some stuff from DWQ. And we thought as a team, Greg, Karen and I met just describing like maybe what the process should be. Should Greg just take over? And we decided to keep it as DWQ, Deputy Director, as the official co-chair, because there's a kind of a unique position there as the division within the water boards that develops the regulation and does a lot of the actions that require the monitoring from the other sectors. So there's a little bit of uniqueness there. And then Greg's my boss, and having him be the chair, and then my boss would be kind of a little bit weird. So we decided to keep things as we are, but we'll see how that process goes. We probably won't have a Karen backfilled position until maybe June or into the summertime. So we'll see how that goes. But Greg's more than capable, and we're happy to have him. Jen, do you have anything from CNRA or the Ocean Protection Council you wanted to highlight?
I think I can just share that at the last our last council meeting in February, our council approved an augmentation to the ocean acidification and hypoxia model that the state has invested in for many years. And this is to improve modeling for a stretch of the coast between San Francisco and Monterey Bay to incorporate kind of the riverine inputs into that model. So we have better kind of finer scale modeling for potential statewide application for management. So I can drop the staff recommendation for that item into the chat if people want more information.
Thanks, Jen. And that's pretty timely. We've been talking about having an OAH modeling item for the last, I don't know, almost a year, I feel. And that's been a kind of recurring topic. And now that we've got your schedule worked out with this schedule, maybe we can do that. We'll talk about that at the end of the meeting, but that's been an item that's been of interest for several folks. So this is pretty timely. So thank you.
Great. And then we did, I guess I will also flag that the legislature appropriated $9.5 million for an intertidal DNA barcode library. I will also, so the council approved the majority of that going to that project, which has connections, I think, to our discussion later on eDNA.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anything from drinking water? Or any questions for Jen, I should say. Okay. Andrew, anything from drinking water or Christine?
Nothing from me today.
Okay. Anthony, anything from the public health side of things that you wanted to update us on?
Nothing comes to mind, Nick. So nothing right now, but I do want to maybe speak with you later or in person when we have a chance to maybe connect this group with some of our folks over here in public health. We have a lot of we work on a lot of common issues. So, but I wanted to kind of have an opportunity to flesh that out with you first before maybe connecting some of the folks here working on issues such as equity, and I think those are issues that we have, but we both of this group and my department work together oftentimes. So, but more to come on that. I'll just leave it at that, and I want to see if we can make time sometime in the future. It doesn't have to be right now or even today. So, but nothing comes to mind immediately right now for any updates.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd be more than happy to meet and discuss those potential collaboration and touch points. That'd be great.
Great, thank you.
Lorian, anything from POTWs?
Yeah, sure. I thought this would be of interest to this group following up on our PFAS session a meeting or two ago. So CASA is sponsoring or co-sponsoring a bill, SB 903, which would prohibit the distribution, selling, or offering for sale of a product that contains intentionally added PFAS, unless DTSC makes a determination that it's a currently unavoidable use. So we're watching that closely as it moves forward. A coalition of POTWs has signed on to support for the letter, so hopefully it continues to move forward through the legislature.
That's great. Anything from stormwater?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Just a quick plug for an upcoming California Stormwater Quality Association seminar on April 25th. I'll drop the link in the chat, but looks like the agenda is going to be a good one. I think some updates on some recent legislative bills, and then it looks like also Amanda McGee, the storms unit chief, will be providing some updates on storms projects. So look forward to that seminar on April 25th by Casqua. And that's all I have, Nick.
Hey, Nick,
Great.
I had one other. This is Brian
Great.
Lawrenson.
Yeah.
MS4. And just on top of what Grant said, the Casca conference this year, annual conference. It's in Sacramento, the 21st to 24th, 23rd of October. But the call for abstracts opens next week, and that window's open for 3 or 4 weeks. But anyone interested up in Sacramento, they're always looking for good collaborative monitoring talks there. I'm doing at least one or helping with one with Region 5, a nice talk and project that we did. So encourage people to take a look at that if you're up in Sacramento.
No, it's great. Yeah, Brian, when that comes out, I'm sure I'll get it, but send it to me if just in case so that I can send it out to our contact list. I'll also plug in the stormwater side of things. The Southern California Stormwater Coalition is working on their next 5-year research agenda, so that should be coming out soon. And I think I'm speaking to somebody at Casca on next Monday. I think it's a subcommittee of Casca about how we develop our agendas along with SCRP and SFEI. So that'll be an interesting talk.
Yeah, you're going to be talking to the Monitoring and Science Subcommittee on Monday morning, Nick.
That's it. I'll be there.
Hey, Brian, can you repeat that date again? The Casca conference?
Yeah, it's not till October 21st through 23rd.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Anything, Mark, anything from the agriculture community?
No, I do not have anything to update.
Okay, thanks.
But thanks.
See nobody from community monitoring. I don't see. Nope. Okay. Ray, anything from the public?
Yeah, I'm happy to announce that the Coastkeeper Alliance is working on a swimmable waters campaign focused on inland waters. So that's going to be a big issue for us in 2024. I also wanted to mention that the alternate public member Fred is on this call and he has something, so he may want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I saw that Fred joined. So, Fred, do you have anything to update the council on?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Good morning,
Great.
everyone.
Morning.
We'll be having a SB 54 plastic pollution and prevention workshop with Cal Recycle, a Zoom hybrid at my tribal casino, Monday, April the 8th, 10 a.m. Please attend. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Where's that located, Fred?
Lakeport, California. It's about 2 hours north of Sacramento.
Okay. If you have any sort of flyer or announcement that you'd like me to send out to our trash work group and specifically the plastics subcommittee, you could send me an email and I'll be happy to do that to get some hopefully more attendance. Yeah, that'd be great.
I did that, and I also posted a PDF flyer announcement in the chat.
Oh, fantastic. I will harvest that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Steve, anything from the science community?
Nothing big, but since you mentioned the idea that this council wanted to look at modeling and look at the relationship, in fact, between modeling and monitoring, there was an event that I think people would be interested in. There was an expert review panel that came in to look at the work that was being done in Southern California. They met in January, and their report on how that model performs and what are the best next steps to improve it is due out shortly. So if you were looking at a June meeting of the council, that might be a great topic because their report would be relatively fresh. And well, that's not the only model I'm sure we would look at. It is a prominent one and be a lot to talk about.
And that's got ocean acidification modeling?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Report out soon. And when it's out, can you please make sure I get it so I can distribute it?
Glad to.
Awesome.
And I apologize to everybody. I've got a bit of a fever, so I'm going to stay off video today.
No, I hope you feel better. Thanks, Steve, for coming. Krista, anything from the academic community?
Yeah, I wanted to let everyone know and probably most of you don't already, that we run a paid summer internship program for CSU students. I just put a link in the chat to the landing page. So we're already selecting the interns for this summer. And we've been expanding. So Ray, I think I mentioned to you last time we saw each other that we've brought Orange County Coastkeeper on as a new partner this year, which is really exciting. If this is something that anyone's interested in, you basically get an intern for 400 hours in the summer. They get paid $8,000. We pay half, the host pays half. So we will begin even in August and September ramping up for summer 2025. So if you want to know more about it, let me know. We're always looking for new hosts, especially from all kinds of different sectors throughout the state. And the other thing, I guess, is more of asking for something. I guess I'm looking for educational materials, probably for the public, on plastics in bottled water, and basically, a fact sheet on why bottled water is not necessarily better than tap water. And either if you already have something, or you could point me to something that's a pretty good resource, I would really appreciate it. I certainly believe these things are out there. I don't want to recreate anything, so we're looking for that kind of support. That's it. Oh, and Steve Blumenshine is here. He's my alternate. He's from CSU Water. So Steve, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Nick, thanks, Krista. Nick, could I make 2 announcements
Oh,
relevant?
please. Yes.
So one of which is our CSU Water annual conference will be coming up in 2 weeks, and we're trying something new in our event. Traditionally, it has been a day of presentations of posters and talks by CSU students and faculty. And in the 2 years since I've been in the position, we've had CSU Water, I've been in those rooms thinking this doesn't reflect our day-to-day operations, like being in a meeting like this and on this council, and the great potential that affords. So we create an additional conference day. Grant Sharp, you'll be one of the attendees there, for example. Let me look around the room. If I'm missing anybody, sorry. And Steve Weisberg, I want to mention, because Scorp will be hosting that day, is our partners and colleagues in that, which we're super appreciative of. So the point of that meeting is to reflect our day-to-day operations and to get people in the room, water experts like yourselves, connected with CSU Water students and faculty. Because we know that there's a lot of issues with the California water workforce, nearly a 20% deficit in job fulfillment. And what we need to know in the CSUs and pass down to the faculty administrators is how best to connect the vast, landscape of CSU students. There's 130,000 graduates every year. How do we connect those to water careers and get them excited about it? So that's the focus of that. We want to come away from that event with some potential for MOUs and establish some partnerships for research collaboration and workforce development. So more on that later. Secondly, I just had meetings this week with a couple of our advisory groups, who are mostly faculty representatives and center and campus leaders. And one thing we'd like to do, which is free and easy, is to do, for example, little interviews like YouTube style for 10 minutes. So experts like you can talk about your careers. Where did you go to school? What was it like when you were a student? Do you think you'd end up where you are now? What advice would you give for young people considering water careers? So I'm really would love to do that. And so if any of you are interested in that, just let me know. You sign up for 10 minutes, just kind of breezy, casual. Don't bring your conference talk, just tell your story. That would inspire young people to get into water careers. So thanks, Krista. Thanks, Nick.
Oh, thanks, Steve. I'd be happy to help. I don't know how inspiring it'll be, but I'll give you an interview. And then I hope that the folks from the Water Board's internship program, did they reach back out to you, Steve, to help with the networking? I'm hoping that somebody can attend from the Water Boards.
I mean, Nick, you did a huge favor, but unfortunately the state travel moratorium. I mean,
I thought maybe from the regional board, maybe, but okay.
Yeah, they couldn't, even from LA and San Diego, they couldn't even get in the car and come. But fortunately, we filled our conference space invite only. And,
okay, cool.
So people
Great.
stepped up. Thanks.
No problem. And then, Krista, in relation to your ask for educational materials, I see that Evelyn Wendell, who's our lead for the Safe to Drink work group, and she's also the founder and CEO of the Tap Water Day. She's got a ton of resources on bottled water and plastic. So I'll connect you to. So I'm sure she's got lots of information really available on plastics and water bottles and why tap water is better.
I hopped on the website quickly, but here, Evelyn, is she still here? Right?
She's still on.
Evelyn, I'll put my email in the chat, and if you could just email me, at your convenience, that way, Nick, you don't have to do it again.
Okay.
That would be great, because I'm really
Cool.
just looking for more stuff, even to use sometimes with my mother-in-law, but.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. And then Peter, anything from water supply?
The San Francisco Bay Area Safe to Eat work group realignment has begun. There's been a few introductory meetings, some of which I've attended, some I didn't, but it seems to be progressing well. And it's just interesting to hear the different types of concerns that people in the Bay Area have from San Diego, which is where the first realignment happened. So it's been interesting from that standpoint. The second thing I have is related to the equity work group for the California Water Quality Monitoring Council. We had a great meeting in January where Kim Desmond, who is the chief of race and equity for the city of San Diego, gave a presentation. I think everybody really enjoyed it. We're looking for another similar speaker for upcoming meetings. And I believe that the work group is still looking for an additional co-chair. So if anybody does know of people who might be interested in equity issues, who would like to help lead and run that committee, they can certainly get in contact with me or with Vicky Kalkertz, who is the existing co-chair that is still there. And that's all I have for today.
Thanks, Peter. And I'm just noticing now on the slide that there's some old information, so I apologize for that. We can ignore the subcommittee on what I was last meeting. Anything, Eric, from Region 9, I know it's your first meeting. Was there anything from EPA Region 9 around water quality monitoring that might be of interest that's kind of up and coming that would be timely for this group?
Let's see, EPA received California's 2024 integrated report, final submission a week and a half ago. So we're reviewing that now. We'll have a decision on that within 30 days. And I think that's my only update that that comes to mind right now, but I'll have more for the next meeting.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, one of the reasons why this council was put together was focused around the integrated report development and being more transparent. So that's great, a great update. And I also sent out a couple of emails this morning that are related to EPA. There's the EPA grants for, what is it, the EN grants? I forget the acronym, but it's for basically how to help with submission to WQX and the EPA data system. So it's open to states and tribes. That's been released and out there, I think as of today. And there's another email sent out about a webinar on water resource management on indigenous lands that would be of interest to folks too. Thanks,
Thank
Eric.
you.
Okay, and so if Karen jumps on and I don't see it, stop me, Greg. But hopefully I'll get my update on and she'll pop on just in time. So my updates for you all are focused on these 4 things. And I'll even add a little extra to it. So first off, the My Water Quality web page updates. We've been working on that for the better part of a year. We're getting really close. Pretty much every single one of our work groups has submitted a template or a draft of a template to the Division of Information Technology web support teams. Several have been already beta tested and reviewed and are ready to go. Others are just getting into that final stages. I'm hoping by the June meeting, end of June meeting, that we have these websites up and available for more, because the feedback, unfortunately, they're behind our firewall, so I can't really show them to folks outside of the water boards without scheduling a specific meeting. But if there are folks that want to see what the look and feel is like, I'm happy to meet and anytime in between these quarterly meetings to kind of just show you the look and feel, but they're coming along. It's a vast improvement from the previous versions, and I'm hoping that they become a little bit more, they're more user friendly and reach our internal and external partners and provide more value to them. So that's coming again, hopefully by the end of June, maybe into the next fiscal year. From the state perspective, it will be ready to go. Another big part of my time is being spent on developing the Water Board's Racial Equity Data Action Plan. My role has been leading a group developing the guidance and best practices around using racial equity-based data for analysis of water board specific programs. We've got a draft of that that's working internally, and we're hoping to become part of the Environmental Justice Roundtable internally. And then ultimately our goal is to release these for use externally, maybe remove some of the more specific internal aspects, but make these resources more available to you all in a wider swath of folks working within the equity space. The California Water Data Consortium, I'm the steering committee co-chair for that. And the big news there is the CEO, Tara Moran, who's been there since the inception, which has been about 3 years, I want to say, maybe 4, is having to step down due to some personal reasons, but there's an active recruitment and search for her replacement. So if you all have good candidates that could fill that role, and to remind you all, the Water Data Consortium was developed out of the AB 1755 Open and Transparent Water Data Act back in 2016. But it's a 501(c) entity that is helping the states and others coordinate around open water data. They've got a few use cases that have been developed, and they're really helping us just do a better job of collaborating internally as well as externally. There's a new telemeter data project that's upcoming that will be working with the water rights information that'll be of interest for those that are working with water, like real-time water flow monitoring. So that's another piece. But the more pressing topic is trying to backfill that CEO position. She's intending to step down by the end of May. And again, they're actively recruiting and looking for interviews soon. So if you have somebody, please reach out sooner rather than later. And I believe I sent out a call for that to this group earlier. And second to lastly, National Water Quality Monitoring Council. I sit on that council, which is ran by EPA as the EPA Region 9 States representative. We are gearing up now for the planning of our biennial conference, the National Water Monitoring Conference. It'll be next year around this time. We haven't finalized the locations, although we're very close. We're thinking it's going to be in the Midwest, somewhere where the Packers play potentially. So that's going to be coming up. The save date will be coming out soon. Again, it should be, I think, the end of April of next year. So I'm helping with the planning committee on that, as well as the equity subcommittee co-chair to help create a more inclusive conference. And lastly, it's not on the list, but I'll mention it for AB 1066, which, if you'll remember, is the 2021 legislation that was directed this council to develop some recommendations around inland recreational monitoring and identification of priority inland sites. We had a little bit of issues with resources, and we're partnering with public health on that. We were able to secure some one-time discretionary funds to help support that work, which is good news. Unfortunately, that funding won't be available until fiscal year 24-25. So I think the earliest we'll be able to really start kicking off that work, which is contracting funds, will be around this time next year. But the good news is we have some resources, and we'll be working with SQUIRP on this to kind of move forward with the requirements that are outlined within AB 1066 to hopefully move that forward, which is a good thing. And any questions for me? on any of those or anything else that I haven't mentioned. I'm not seeing Karen. Well, I'd hope Karen, well, thanks for that. I'd hope Karen would be able to pop in, and maybe if she does, then we can take a minute and let her speak. But
Hey, Nick, can I add a couple of things?
Sure.
Just because OEMA is so strongly represented here today, I wanted to announce that our Office of Information Management Analysis has hired 3 new senior level people. Backfilling a position that Jarma Bennett was in, we have Karen Cower coming from Orange County CN, chemical engineering background. Coming from Sacramento County, we have Bernita Prashad, I think is how she pronounced it, and she's our new QA officer for the state of California's water board programs. And then Anna Holder took a position as a senior environmental scientist overseeing our equity and science kind of a position. So she'll be elevating and doing some of the same things she's been doing, but also having a stronger lead on a lot of the equity and science work that we do. So just wanted to make those announcements in case you want to know people that you might recognize.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, hey, Greg, thank you very much for those updates. Super glad to hear Jarma's position's been backfilled. Would you be so kind as to put, I think you said her name is Karen, put her name in the chat?
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Move on. Okay, so down to our first item. I'll let Krista kick this off at first, and then we'll go ahead and dive into it. And again, if Karen jumps on, maybe she can weigh in, but also provide a quick update.
All right, thanks, Nick. And hi, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this agenda item to the council. So the general purpose of the discussion is to talk about the role of the council or individual members in raising awareness in Sacramento about specific issues that are relevant to the council. So things related to water quality monitoring and the environment. Nick, could you go to the next slide? And could you remind me what the time allotted for this item is?
Sure, there's plenty of time. I believe it's an hour. So
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So some of you know and may remember that we formed a subcommittee of council members, and it includes Greg Gearhart, me, Steve Blumenshine, Fred Briones, and Helen Fatanides. We are specifically interested in post-fire water quality impacts. And this, for me, is really coming from some of the fires that have occurred at the urban wildland interface. So as we're burning more and more areas with human development and materials, things are getting into the water post-fire that I think are of exceptional concern and should be, especially when those waterways then end up being part of communities' drinking water supply. So our interest is in putting together sort of a little think tank, a group of experts from California and possibly beyond to draft a white paper. And the ultimate goal would be to circulate this white paper with folks in Sacramento. I work a lot lobbying folks on the legislative side. And so there's also, I think, a discussion to be had about interacting with the legislative side versus the executive side, specifically because this council is on the executive side and run by folks who are state agency members. And I'm not particularly well versed in some of the nuances between the leg and executive branches and some of the barriers or what is and is not protocol, but Nick and even Jen could fill in on that, right? I probably approach this from a somewhat naive standpoint. So that's where we're headed with the subcommittee, again, with the purpose of, here's an issue that those of us on the council, and it's also not just people on the council interested in this. This is an emerging topic across California. But here's an issue that we're interested in. I'm not sure how much it's being talked about in Sacramento. I mean, I know there's huge conversations on wildfires and all other aspects of wildfire, but I don't see this as a high priority item yet. So at CSU Coast, we often take it upon ourselves to identify something that we think, especially folks in the legislature, need to know about, and state agencies, and raise that issue with them. We're not necessarily asked to do that. Jen, I saw your hand up. Okay.
I'll let you finish, and then I will address your comments, Krista.
Okay. And so that's what we do at CSU Coast, right? We're the California State University. We're run by the state, but we're not really a state agency the way you think of it. And we have a lot of freedom to do these kind of things. And so it had come up in discussions with another council member that in the past, the council has provided, and it says here on the slide, impartial input upon request. And I guess I would want to clarify that in terms of what COAST does, as well as what I think impartial input refers to, which is not advocacy for an outcome. It's more providing access to the best scientific information to support informed and evidence-based decision-making and policy development. So within CSU Coast, we are here as scientists to be honest brokers of information. And this is what I actually learned at SCWRP, with Steve Weisberg, which was where I first worked coming out of grad school, which was, the role is to say, here's what the science tells you. And if you're trying to make a decision, what we can tell you is that if you do A, here is what will likely happen based on what we know. And if you do B, here is what is also likely to happen. But it's not to tell anyone you should or shouldn't do this or that. So I think that's a really important distinction. So the first question here is sort of, should the council really only provide that kind of input if it's requested, which I believe it has in the past? Or is there a role for the council to identify relevant and emerging topics and take it upon itself to begin raising awareness of that? And then there are some sub questions about who on the council can do this, because some of you are state agency employees and maybe it's totally not something you would do, because you also have to, maintain your responsibilities to your employer. Whereas there's others of us on the council from outside state agencies who have a little bit more latitude. And then if we are engaging in this type of activity, would you say we're doing it on behalf of the council? Like, would Greg and Helen and Fred and I say, yeah, we're a subcommittee of the Water Quality Monitoring Council? Would we not say that? Would we say we're doing this and we also are council members, which is a little bit splitting hairs if someone's paying attention? So those are the topics that I wanted to raise, and I think it might make sense to kind of take these in order, but we can have a pretty wide-ranging discussion. And I will ask Nick and even Jen, if she wants, as and Greg as the co-chairs, to kind of help direct the conversation. So thanks for the opportunity to present this.
Nick, is it okay if I jump in?
Please.
Thanks. Thank you, Krista. So I might take all of these questions kind of all together and just share my perspective. So I absolutely think there is incredible value in providing best available science on current and emerging issues, whether that's reactive from a request or taking a proactive approach. So I think that's really important for this group and others who are working on the issues that are really important to protecting the coast and ocean. For me, as a member of the an agency that's part of the administration, I have to be careful. I am allowed to provide background. I'm allowed to provide technical assistance. I can talk about the priorities of the state and the work that we're doing and the investments that we're making. What I can't do, if there is active legislation, I can't say, hey, if you make X, Y, and Z changes, we'll support the bill or we'll support your action. So that's the kind of balance that I need to walk. I also can't make comments about opinions on the governor's proposed budget, right? I'm part of the administration. I support that budget, but I think there's flexibility within this group to thread that needle a little differently. So I think this is really important, and I think it's up to each individual council member, I think, to characterize their affiliation when doing this outreach. I just think we need to be careful saying like, this is, if we're doing anything that looks like advocacy, then we need to be careful about saying this is the perspective of the council as a whole.
Thanks, Jen. Greg, I saw you pop on. Did you have something to add, or he popped off? No. Okay.
I would say in response to what Jen said, I think, and walking that line between providing information and advocacy, and using this post-fire water quality impacts as an example, it's, in my opinion, it's trying to raise awareness about what is a problem, I think, or what is that there are these high levels of chemicals, heavy metals, chemicals of emerging concern, and persistent organic pollutants showing up post-fire because you're burning things like tires, car batteries, vinyl siding, asphalt. And so it's different than the suite of chemicals you're getting when you burn a natural area. And so to some extent, it would be a little bit of the ultimate goal would be to suggest, and this is like the ultimate goal, that the state would need a post-fire water quality monitoring plan so that it could, in a comprehensively standardized way, look at the impacts of those fires. Now that may go to advocacy, and so we may not end up there, but the first step would be just saying, here are the data, here's what we're seeing after these burns, and you can see that these levels, these exceed whatever standard. We think that this is, something of concern because it has impacts on both drinking water for human health, possibly, as well as aquatic life and other sorts of beneficial uses.
I think that's totally appropriate, Krista. And just so you know, like this is something that's come up repeatedly at OPC and something that we've been thinking about how we prioritize. So I think where it starts to cross over is if the message is, we think you should write legislation that directs the state to do X, Y, and Z. But one thing I didn't mention, I think this is really important because when we plant the seed in this way, like this is an issue that might not be on your radar, right? We're educating, and then they will think about this. Oh, maybe this is a priority that we should elevate in the budget, right? Maybe this is something I should think about in legislation. So I think providing the data, framing the problem, and characterizing what possible solutions there could be is really, really key.
I agree with that characterization of it as planting the seed and then here you go, but not, we want you to write a piece of legislation. I don't think that's part of what I see as the ultimate outcome. I guess I would hope they would come to that conclusion on their own and find the money for it.
That's right.
So I agree that that's the line.
Right. Yeah, I'll agree with what Jen's saying, and I would say that there's a fine line, and there's a definite role for the council as part of the legislation that says that we should make recommendations to the secretaries. We don't get much face time with Wade or Yana. I don't think we've even met with Yana yet, but there is an avenue there where we can make recommendations on like, these are the priorities that we see that should be focused on. And that's a separate kind of entity where we can like be more specific with the secretaries in that space. I agree that that council members, specific council members that are not state employees, have the ability to take the initiative and lead that education piece where you present this as an issue, like, here's our research, here's our findings, here's where we see data gaps. You guys figure out if that's an important priority. And I think you should say, in addition to, saying as the executive director of Coast, I think that's more meaningful than saying you're a council member. But I would also say that I'm also a member of the council, the Water Quality Monitoring Council, just to provide awareness, because I would imagine most legislatures weren't around in 2008 when it was first founded. So like, just providing, like, say I'm also the council members that represents the academic community. This is just to describe what the council is briefly, which shouldn't take more than a couple of sentences, and just say that. And that I would also leverage the resource that is the council, like leverage the work groups to find the speakers that do the educating potentially. We span a wide variety of sectors, a wide variety of expertise, whether that be from our internal monitoring programs or from the folks that are required to monitor, and just help leverage those resources would be my suggestion. Andrew, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention two things. I think there's probably there's a distinction if we're talking about, legislation as has been talked about versus like actions that agencies, departments can take on their own. And I think there's some, there's some difference there. I mean, it occurs to me though, in either case, that, the one thing we could certainly do is invite legislative staff, invite other, state departments, et cetera, to come to these meetings to talk about specific issues and sort of where their perspectives are on it. And then, and then have a discussion around that, so if there's enough interest from them, that we could do that sort of thing. So I don't know, Nick, if that sort of thing is possible within kind of our meeting format, but just an idea to throw out there.
If I can respond to that, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the California Research Bureau, but I've been working with them, and they also do just sort of a series of raising awareness things. And so right now we're working on one. I don't think it would be public. We'd be inviting some really key legislative staff and committee staff to talk about sea level rise and groundwater contamination. So maybe, Andrew, that's a lot like what you're kind of saying of, here's some experts, we want you to just hear what they have to say. And I guess too, then we do hope that they walk away. And then if they decide to pursue it, maybe they come back and ask for more and more information. But again, we always stay on the side of providing unbiased, objective information and drawing the line at that, at least for your state agency, right? So it's right, then you can take action.
Right, and we could also like provide the information that we have, right? I mean, we have objective information, and as Christine was emailing me, reminding me, we've done like in Division of Drinking Water research on post-fire issues, and so we could, for example, talk about that again. I think we have brought it to the council before, but we could bring some of that back as well.
I will jump in just real quick before getting to you, Fred, and then Evelyn. I see your hands are up. I will say that I definitely think that there's a role to work with legislative staffers. We've talked about that within that subcommittee, and I think that's definitely, I don't know if we want to do it within a council meeting, but I think that working within their schedules would be important. And one thing, I was at an event that was being put on by Stanford, which was really focused on how to better meld emerging research with policy development, and it was really a great event. And there were a couple of folks that were used to work for the Office of Planning and Research, and they really spoke to the importance of timing those presentations, those educational meetings and presentations for the staffers with the legislative cycle. And that's like a really key component, that if there are folks or things being planned, that be taken into account. That was hammered over a few times, but there's very clear there's a desire to better meld research with policy development and thinking about ways to do that better. Fred, I see your hands up.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Fred, and I'm not a government employee. I'm the CEO of a nonprofit organization, and I'm a tribal member at the Big Valley Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians. And I think it's a good idea to involve legislators, because fire is a huge issue in California, and water quality also. And from a tribal standpoint, tribal people have been doing cultural burns for thousands of years to protect our food and to harvest basket material. Primarily, we do our burns in wetland areas. And the purpose of the burn, again, is to, promote new growth and growing new tules. We all know that's good for the water quality of the wetland. However, it has never been studied before. So hopefully those data points like that, we could collect to make a stronger argument of why this research needs to be done. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation to let everybody know that some burns are very bad, but then some burning, cultural burning, tribal burning is very good. So burning has been going on in California for thousands of years. So to collect data and hopefully some type of legislation, it's in the future. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
I see Evelyn, but could I jump in?
Sure.
So Fred is part of our subcommittee, and we're meeting, he's arranged a meeting with other tribal representatives in about 10 days, because it is really important to us to understand this aspect of fire in California, to understand tribal cultural sites and help protect them by, eventually developing a monitoring program and even picking sites of cultural relevance to tribes, as well as, I think, and Steve Blumenschein knows more about this, that sources of drinking water that will be important for different communities, I think primarily underserved communities. And so that's something we want to incorporate in it as well. So sorry for interjecting that before you speak, Evelyn. I'm done.
Thanks, Krista. Evelyn, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say a few things. First of all, thank you for that comment you just made, Fred. I really appreciate that. I just want to say that I guess as a NGO of the founder of an NGO, it's frustrating because first of all, there's not enough people doing all the work. It's just never enough. And so, some things we are at a crisis point, and some things we're trying to, be thoughtful managers, and some things we're trying to prevent, because we see the writing on the wall, but we don't necessarily know how to get to the end result, even though we have all the information. So I don't know. I think this is a really important conversation to have. And it feels, from my limited experience, it just feels like there's so many silos operating across the state that I hope we can kind of join forces a little more. Like, I want to bring up the SoCal Water Dialogue, which is sponsored through MWD. They have bi-monthly or monthly conversations. They bring speakers in. It's always an interesting conversation. Now that we have Zoom, sometimes there's like 100 people that show up. Sometimes there's 50. There's no guarantee. There's also the LA Water Committee, which is a lot of NGOs. And we always talk about, like legislation that's going through the pipe and things that we want to prioritize as a committee. So I'm assuming that the California Research Bureau might be that another resource to connect maybe North and South activists. And so anyways, and timing is everything, but also so is follow-up. And I don't always know like the right timing or when to follow up. So I would like guidance for that too. I'm not sure where to go for that or how to, I'm sort of figuring things out as I go. So anyways, just wanted to say those few notes.
Thanks, Evelyn, and thanks for always being an advocate for the council and trying to look at creative ways to elevate the work that's being done here and by the work groups. Evelyn's also the lead for the Safe to Drink work group, and we've been working hard on developing a new website. So
I love this council. It's so important. So thank you all, honestly.
I'm gonna open it to can't really see the chat, but if there not seeing anything, is there any other council members or people that want to kind of comment on these questions or have anything else to say on kind of the topic in general about engagement, limitations, opportunities? Or are there other questions that are kind of popping up for you, Krista, that you want to talk more about?
I see Brian's unmuted.
Great.
Hey, yeah, I couldn't find the raise the hand thing, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's, talking about this is a great idea. I think just really clearly defining, few people mentioned fine lines, when you're talking about advocacy and science, there's lots of fine lines there, from, broad spectrum of viewpoints and everything. So I think I think, the utility of this council being, that we're, and kind of what our original intent is to find efficiencies. And sometimes I think efficiencies in finding funding, which is probably one of the big questions that we could handle. But I think just we really would need to define what our approach would be. And I think it's within what we're allowed to do. And then and I think this is the questions and what agencies can do. You'll get limitations, I think, from all, the different groups that participate here and what they can and can't do. So just would have to be really kind of figured out. So we had some operating principles.
I think that's great. And, I think that we could talk more if people want, but for me, that's a really good outcome for the day is that I think what I'm hearing is there's a lot of interest in this. There's interest in, going ahead and taking the initiative with trying to raise awareness about what we see through our work as emerging topics, and sharing that information without advocating. So it seems to me like that's something that there's general consensus on, that the council should, if people want, engage in that type of activity. And I do agree with what Brian just said, a next step might be to develop some principles so people have guidelines for how they do this type of engagement, especially if they are identifying themselves as council members. So we're not, it wasn't my vision that we're going to nail all this out today and have a bunch of answers, but I feel like this is a positive start to the discussion that gives us room to go forward and figure out what this looks like for us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, for pushing this forward, and I think, there's some clear good points that we would want to make sure that, that we would encourage the use of saying, identify yourselves as council members if you're doing this sort of outreach, but I would be careful not to say that this is a recommendation by the council or this is the council speaking broadly, but I think highlighting the council itself and that your role in the council as a representative for your specific sector is important and it is of value. For multiple levels, it's valuable for the council, but also valuable to kind of provide some grounding in the fact that you are working with the collaboration of folks within the water quality monitoring space and have some resources there and some background there. And I think that there's resources there to be gleaned from the work groups that we have and the expertise around specific topics like we've been doing. I also think that we need to better utilize our legislatively mandated action, which is to make recommendations to the secretaries, which has been a struggle consistently since I've been around, but it's something that we can think continue to push for and you leveraging that ability for you know, the co-chairs and then like a specific set of council members to make, you know, a handful of, maybe not even a handful, like 2 or 3 recommendations that are like super high level that we think are of utmost importance that the secretary should be aware of in and see how that falls out. That's another avenue that we should be doing, but it's been difficult to implement in a meaningful way. So that's another thing that we can look at. But I love the idea of working with the legislative cycle and looking at how we can educate and let the staffers and legislators come to their own conclusions based on education. I think that that's a really intriguing way to do it, and I think it's welcome. I think from what I saw and what I heard from the folks that were at that other event last week was that there is a desire to merge research and policy development and legislative development. So
I guess if we want to develop any kind of guidance, Nick, I would be happy to work with you, maybe Greg, who doesn't have enough to do, but would be a good person in his position as co-chair of this and also at the agency. And I don't know if there are other folks who would want to contribute, especially folks who maybe are not state agency employees, but we could work towards trying to develop a document, Nick. If we don't make a plan, then nothing will happen. I see Steve, your hand up, and then Duncan.
Thanks. So I'm in support of everything you all have been talking about, but there are also some other groups that have similar responsibilities, some even legislatively drawn. For instance, the California Council on Science and Technology was created by the legislature to help provide that kind of input to them. They tend to work on many things other than what we work on. We probably are 5% of what they do. On the other hand, they have a position in that regard. Similar to the California Ocean Science Trust has taken on some of this role, putting together workshops. So I want to make sure that we coordinate with those groups if we're going to move forward.
Yeah, I do think there's room for additional advocacy, but yeah, it's good to talk with those guys.
Yeah, I think there is room, Chris. I don't mean to say that they're in the way because again, CCST, probably 5% overlap. Ocean Science Trust, maybe 10% overlap with the things we do because they're just ocean and a very limited number of issues there. But we do want to make sure to coordinate with those groups.
yeah, I think that's a really good point, Steve. And you know, potentially they've already got stuff set up that we can just hop onto their agenda and present our specific pieces. You know, I think the coordination piece is important.
Exactly, because we don't want to confuse the legislature with have too many groups coming at them on what appear to be similar topics.
Duncan.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, fantastic. Well, first of all, I'm very honored to have discovered you guys, and I'm very impressed and admire the work that you're doing immensely. I have a sort of second generation heritage with this because my family co-founded the NRDC. And I'm discovering a little later in life the potential to get involved in this and do it in some kind of a positive way. I was involved, and I'm overdue to do some outreach with the Orange County Coastkeeper Group in helping equestrian community manage their water footprints, because so many of their places, their facilities are in low-lying ground and directly adjacent to streams and even right on the coastline. And we, had to make some fairly radical changes and take some responsibility. And we learned some things in the process that the engineers and the science community didn't necessarily understand and wouldn't have found. And I think there's an interesting thing for this whole group of, public servants here that I'm in great admiration of, which is that if we come at it completely from the, oh my God, you've done something wrong, or this terrible thing is happening standpoint and not engaging the public in the individual and very local activities and actions or solutions that are needed, we miss out on an engagement opportunity. And that's something that I've learned over the past 3 or 4 years. And, you know, oddly enough, our equestrian community is stepping up, and we have a chance to do something with soil production and healthy soils and really engage that we can be proud of. And I would imagine, you know, I'm just throwing this out there, that there are probably, you know, when I was studying our footprint, I was realizing that we were one of many impairments that happened to water, and tracing these impairments and finding the sources. It's not always, you know, people that are doing it purposely, and there are groups and people that would like to get involved to solve their own problems, if that makes sense. At any rate, thank you for letting me speak a little bit.
No, thanks, Duncan. I think that's an important example that messaging is important, to not just come with problems, but to come with solutions and incorporate local and regional flexibility and information as well. One of the other subcommittee members on Helen group that Krista and Steve are leading, Steve Blumenshine, is our community monitoring group representative Helen Fatanides, to kind of bring that perspective in and to leverage that network of localized folks that are experiencing very specific and localized issues, and let them provide potential solutions. So I think that is a key, and I think that's important to understand. So I appreciate you speaking and providing an example.
Well, thank you for involving me and including me. I did get to help with the pollinator highway bill last summer, and that was, you know, eye-opening. Anyhow, thank you all for everything that you guys do.
Thank you.
Nick, I just had some thoughts about hearing this conversation and reacting. I think there's there's two components that are being talked about. That one is like, how does the council and the executive departments and agencies that are participating in this sort of identify and rise up, support, whatever the word is, for the emerging issues. So like the core topic here was, it was started with, you know, post-wildfire water quality monitoring, but there's lots of things like that. And I think there's a significant amount of like work that is not touching the legislative second rail, or whatever the metaphor on that is, but it's a lot of work, and there's people here that can help do that work, you know, especially at the resources and environmental protection agencies. And what I mean by that is it's significant staff time to do coordination and wrangling. I've been involved in a couple of things that are kind of adjacent to this, statewide fire data portals, trying to like build relationships in things, products that sort of revolve around data, water data. And so, you know, even the consortium projects that I'm involved in now, it's a significant lift just to do the bare minimum of coordinating to keep each other sort of apprised of what your interests are, what you're working on. And so the council could maybe support that, you know, on the executive side alone, without necessarily having to kind of cross over into the legislative and advocacy role. But there's definitely lots of opportunities to do both. And so I think as this guidance gets developed, it'd be interesting for me to see, you know, because I heard you basically say, Nick and others, that it would be great to make recommendations to the agency secretaries about, here's our top 3 things for 2025 or something like that. To do that, I mean, we can write up an issue statement that says fires are like a thing and water quality after a fire is a thing, but it would be even more empowering to sort of make those recommendations with sort of pre-baked work groups, you know, or people. Like we've reached out, we've found out there's a staff person here that can spend, you know, 10% of their time, because it is time at the end of the day to do the coordination. It is like significant. So just those are my thoughts.
Well, thanks, Greg. Ray, I see your hand up.
Sure, I think one thing that might be helpful is just maybe some kind of communication amongst the members when they're going to, if they know they're going to be meeting with specific staff or something like that, and then there can be a heads up as, hey, maybe while you're there, mention this or that specific issue related to the council. As an example, I'm going to be in Sacramento for an OPR convening, and OPR was mentioned specifically in the agenda, so all the senior staff is going to be there. I know most of them. So if there was something specific that would be a good chance to bring up, then, I'm going to be there with them for 2 days. So just an idea.
No, thanks, Ray. I think in coordinating amongst ourselves is a paramount, if folks like yourselves that are meeting with OPR, that's something to coordinate with, just as, Steve mentioned, to coordinate with some of the other science trusts that are kind of maybe charged with interacting. I think that those are both things that need to be resourced. And I think to Greg's point, that's sort of what we're trying to do with, Chris is developing a subcommittee to develop a specific white paper on a specific topic. And I think that having that kind of effort, which is a huge lift on her part, on Steve's Blumenshine's part, is to kind of coordinate. It's been going on and to bring in the tribal perspective with Fred, and then to also bring in the community members. Yeah, that's a lot of work. But that's the kind of product you want to bring to secretary, that just doesn't say, here's an issue. Here's something that we put together. We have folks that are galvanized around this issue, and here are here's something that's already ready to go, sort of thing, to kind of move things forward, to look for solutions. So I think that I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. You need to come with a full package, not just like a bunch of issues. We still have time if other people want to speak or say anything. It's been a great discussion so far. I think it's been productive. Krista or Steve Blumenshine or anything? No, you're good. With that,
Well, I just want to say thanks, Nick, for the opportunity to discuss this. Thank you for the discussion and everyone taking the time. I appreciate it.
no, thank you. And I got an action item to look at. It's sort of an engagement guidance sort of thing. Okay. Great. We are ahead of schedule, which I was kind of assuming that would happen with this particular agenda. I don't know, Susie, if you're available to go early, or if you'd rather we could take a quick bio break. I know Susie's on. How do you feel?
I'm happy to go.
Okay.
Great.
Great. All right.
Let me
relinquish control.
Okay.
And then hopefully you should be able to share. If not, I can give you co-host.
Okay. Here we go. How's that?
It is in the PowerPoint version. Yeah, there you go. Got it.
Good. Hopefully you can hear me okay. There's a little
great.
background noise because we're on spring break, but it's good to see everybody. And I'm really excited to talk about the Molecular Methods Workgroup and what we've been up to over the past couple of years. And it's all credit to this council and seeing the vision for what the Molecular Methods Workgroup could be accomplishing. So today, I have a couple of key things that I wanted to talk about, but in particular, for folks that aren't so familiar with the Molecular Methods Workgroup and what we focus on, kind of give an overview of how we spend our time and what the members come to do to accomplish. And really that's that the California Molecular Methods Workgroup for the past 6 years has been focused on DNA method coordination and standardization. And we really were the first ones to do this at a statewide scale in the US. And so it's really positioned us to be a national leader and example of how you can be bringing folks together to help advance DNA methods and how they're being incorporated into monitoring programs. So that's what we've been up to since our foundation in 2018. And then it's just a really exciting time now in 2024 in the US because there is a draft national eDNA strategy that's being developed by the White House Office of Science, Technology Policy, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And so that's now calling for the coordination and standardization of eDNA methods at a national scale. And it's really shining a spotlight on the efforts here in California. And so I'll be talking about how that national strategy came to be and the role that California has been playing in helping provide inspiration for research priorities, moving that eDNA national strategy forward. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of background on what sort of inspired us to form the Molecular Methods Workgroup. And if we look over the course of the past 2 or so decades, we know that eDNA methods have just become increasingly more popular. The figure here on the right-hand side of your screen gives you an overview of publications that have included some flavor of eDNA-based methods, either for aquatic sciences or other sorts of environmental biology, or maybe looking at eDNA present in the soils to better understand biological communities and how they're responding to environmental change. So we've seen this like rapid increase in the use of eDNA methods. And here in California, multiple agencies and monitoring programs have begun to pilot these eDNA studies. That includes the SWAMP program that's now collecting water eDNA to better understand benthic macroinvertebrate communities, algal communities, as well as fish populations. We're seeing it in some of the regional water boards who are using eDNA methods for targeted species analyses, maybe looking for invasive and endangered taxa. And so it's a really exciting time to see all these monitoring programs begin to adopt eDNA-based methods. But the one thing that we really were all faced with is that many of these studies or monitoring programs can be operating in silos. And so what that results in is a general lack of coordination in how these methods are being adopted, which decreases opportunities for interoperability of data sets and the comparability of results. I like to show this slide here. That's like literally the first page of a number of different eDNA standard protocol documents. And so you can see that across the US, we have all these different agencies and monitoring programs that are coming up with like a protocol that their agency is going to use. But if those agencies aren't talking together, then we have no ability to compare those apples and oranges. And some of the choices that you might make in what filter type you're going to use for filtering your water eDNA sample, or what primers you might use for amplifying your DNA to identify different taxa, if those key elements are different, it really limits the ability to link those data sets together and make bigger and better inferences about biological communities across space and time. And so we really see this lack of coordination as an opportunity and really addressing that patchwork eDNA method development because it's been limiting comparability of data sets, because it misses opportunities to leverage economies of scale and creates essentially a confusing landscape of which of these methods is the best one. At SCORP, a lot of times we're working with our member agencies who might be excited about applying an eDNA method to a research question that they have. But the first question we always get is just, how should I be collecting my water? How should I be filtering my water? And so if there's limited collaboration or coordination on identifying what those best practices are, then it slows the adoption of those methods. And so we wanted to found a community that could essentially serve as a clearinghouse for identifying what those best approaches would be for adopting eDNA methods. So in 2018, we came to the Water Quality Monitoring Council saying we thought it was important if we had a work group focused on exactly these issues of coordination and collaboration on eDNA methods. And so we came up with 3 key pillars that we want to focus on for the Molecular Methods Work Group, and they included consensus building. So that was really identifying what some of those best practices are going to be for both sampling your environmental DNA samples, and then also things like data reporting and data analyses approaches, and providing some written guidance that could be adopted by other monitoring programs and integrated into their monitoring protocols to have some universality in the way that we're doing our eDNA-based methods across multiple different agencies and programs. Another big piece was just communication. I really love promoting eDNA literacy and making people feel comfortable with what eDNA is and its strengths and potential, but also transparency on its weaknesses and where the science still has room to grow, and what are some of the key research priorities that are going to help us get there. And so the work group has been focused over the past couple of years on a lot of informational webinars. And we also talk a lot about recent research. We just met yesterday as part of our monthly meetings, and we discuss some recent publications or topic areas that might be of interest to the work group members. Everybody can share their experience and expertise and where we might still have questions on how these different new tools coming online might be useful to our monitoring programs. Some of the images that you have on the right-hand side of the screen, just a smattering of the logos for different members of our work group. I think our email list, has multiple hundreds of folks on it at this point. The work group is open to everyone, and we really encourage anyone who has an interest, even if they're, novice user, has never used DNA before, or you're an expert user and you use it routinely, from academia to agencies, tribal representation. And we have folks not just in California. We have people that join us from across the US and even internationally, because I think a lot of people are looking for that community of folks all using eDNA methods to be able to really talk about what the best approaches are going to be. And then one of the things I've been really proud of is just to see the collaborations that have come out of this work group. And so there have been research proposals that have been written. There have been folks who have been collaborating on identifying ideal primers to use for targeting their different preferred taxonomic groups. And I'll mention a couple of different efforts that are kind of adjacent to the molecular methods work group, but it's just been really beautiful to see this group of people come together, all talk about eDNA science and find different ways to collaborate together to help accelerate the adoption of these methods. So as I mentioned, one of the things that we like to provide and we spent our first couple of years generating was a couple of best practice or standardized protocol documents that kind of can serve as a template that then can be adopted by different monitoring programs and tailored to fit their needs, but have some of the core underpinnings of best practices to help ensure that high quality data is getting collected. So just as an example, we had generated a draft of one of these environmental DNA from water samples protocol documents that we provide. It's available on our website, and that method in particular has been adopted by the Estuary MPA monitoring program, as well as being included in the Southern California Bight Regional Monitoring Program that kicked off in 2023 this year, and it's incorporated in a number of different sampling modules for the Bight program in 2023. So that's exactly what we want to see, is that one of these template best practice documents that we've provided is now being put into practice in some of these different monitoring programs, hopefully serving as a resource for folks to be able to feel confident that this document was developed through a consensus-driven approach with many diverse voices from a number of different folks of different backgrounds who have all agreed that these are some of the key elements to include to make sure that you're generating high quality data. As I mentioned, one of the other things that we like to do for the Molecular Methods Work Group is have educational opportunities. And so this past year, we collaborated with the Council's Monitoring Collaboration Network, and we've had a series of informational webinars that you can see listed on the right-hand side of your screen, everything from eDNA 101 to eDNA for bioassessment for harmful algal bloom monitoring and species surveillance. We heard from folks at the California Department of Water Resources on some of the really great work that they're doing for targeted species monitoring. And these have been really awesome because it's extended the reach of the Molecular Methods Work Group. And we've had over 100 participants, I think, at every single one of our webinars so far. And a lot of them are folks who previously haven't been involved in the Molecular Methods Work Group. So it's just been really great to use the Molecular Methods Work Group and the Collaboration Network as kind of an opportunity to reach even further and help encourage that eDNA familiarity and literacy. And people can get to know what different monitoring programs in California are up to and how these methods are being implemented. Okay, I also wanted to highlight how the Molecular Methods Work Group is being pointed to as a national example. And this is a publication that came out just this last year talking about how environmental DNA can be integrated into public agencies. And the position that they take in this article was that there's this concept of a sandbox, which is essentially a space where people from different agencies or organization and academia and stakeholder communities can come together and kind of test drive a method and talk about ways that it can be optimized. And in that sandbox, you have opportunities for testing something out and then modifying it and then testing it out again. And it's kind of a play space where different groups and users can come together and develop an optimized method. And so the highlighted here on the left-hand side of your screen is an excerpt that kind of shouts out the California Molecular Methods Workgroup as an example of one of these types of sandbox experiences or platforms where you can bring a bunch of diverse users together and test out a method and optimize it. And so it's just nice to see the Molecular Methods Workgroup getting the recognition even at the national scale. Okay, so then I wanted to highlight a couple of examples of who I might call like the friends of the Molecular Methods Workgroup and different ways that eDNA methods are getting incorporated into monitoring programs in California and beyond. And the first one I wanted to highlight is the SWAMP eDNA metabarcoding monitoring and analysis project, or the CMAP project. And this has been a really awesome effort that SWAMP has been spearheading, I think maybe over the past 4 years, where they've been sending out water eDNA test kits to a number of different monitoring programs throughout the state, who then collect a water eDNA sample alongside their traditional monitoring sampling that they're doing. And then those samples all get sent off to a sequencing facility that then generates DNA metabarcoding data to look at a suite of different taxa. And then the CMAP program has been integrating all of that data and putting it on its dashboard, where then users can go and look individually at their site or at other samples that have been collected across the state and see what species are getting picked up, either benthic macroinvertebrates or algae or plants or fish. And I think this has been a really great example of how having universality in methods approaches allows for the integration of a data set across space and time, which has been really neat. And also this data is really, chock full of information about taxa who might be present in these systems that previously we haven't had the bandwidth to monitor for. And so it then presents an opportunity to ask follow-up questions. And so if we're seeing species that we didn't expect to find, what additional monitoring can we be doing in the future? So it's a really great kind of look-see who's there and the power of collecting this type of data across space and time to get those baseline understandings of biodiversity and how it's changing over time. Also springboarding off of the Molecular Methods Workgroup is something called the West Coast Ocean Biomolecular Observing Network, or West Coast OBON. So we have a number of folks that are involved in this West Coast OBON effort that are also part of the California Molecular Methods Workgroup. The West Coast OBON effort is particularly focused on marine biodiversity programs, and it's through this UN Ocean Decade program. And so it's certified as one of these like UN Ocean Decade programs that's focused on bringing together different monitoring programs and identifying best practices for eDNA or eRNA based approaches for sampling and analyzing your biological communities. The West Coast OBON group is particularly focused on bioinformatic workflows, so how we're analyzing our data computationally, and then how you're reporting all the important ancillary metadata that goes along with your DNA sequences. And then also how we can begin by using universal approaches for either sequencing or analyses or bioinformatic pipelines, how that's helping us stitch together the data sets from programs like NOAA Cal Coffee, the Southern California Bight Regional Monitoring Program, some of the monitoring that MBARI, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, is doing as well. We have these amazing, rich biological monitoring data sets, and using eDNA, we can begin to piece them together to, again, create these data sets that we can probe bigger, better questions of, because we can look across space and time using those eDNA-based data sets. Okie doke. And next, there we go. Okay, the other one that I wanted to highlight, as we heard mentioned by Jen Eckerly previously, is now we have this $9 million that has been allocated going towards the intertidal biodiversity DNA barcode library development effort, which is really exciting for California. This is just going to make a huge dent in our need to have more complete DNA reference libraries. So these are the genetic sequences of all these priority taxa that we want to target in these critically sensitive environments. to better understand who is there and how they're responding to climate change events or how there are species range shifts, and get, again, that baseline understanding of biodiversity in these really sensitive environments. I'm really excited because there's going to be an effort to identify some of the best practices for going out and sampling and collecting and analyzing these samples as well. And it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to bring together researchers for collaborating and using universal standardized methods across data generation. And it's such a large effort, and it will be making such a huge impact on our understanding of intertidal communities. So it's just really exciting, again, that California has such a leadership position and serving as an example at a national scale of how we can really put our focus on these environments where we have our greatest need for understanding biodiversity, and how DNA tools will help us get there. All right, and then thankfully, also what we're seeing at the national scale now is the increasing spotlight on eDNA-based methods. And so not only in California are we seeing more monitoring programs begin to adopt them, but also nationwide, a number of our federal agencies, things like U.S. Geological Survey, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. EPA, they've all been spearheading different eDNA efforts as well. But just like what we're seeing in California is this call for a need for better collaboration and coordination among our monitoring programs, we're seeing that at the national scale. And now the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy has recognized the need for better coordination and collaboration on eDNA method development. And so it has spearheaded an eDNA task team to develop a national aquatic eDNA strategy. And it is hopefully going to debut in June of this year. And so we've been working with a number of our agency partners over the past year to develop this kind of seed or kernel of an idea that sprung out of the second national workshop on marine eDNA that SCORP hosted back in 2022. And then the idea was kind of crystallized in this publication toward a national eDNA strategy for the United States. And now it's being formalized by a number of federal agencies and put together in this White House OSCP, or the Office of Science and Technology Policy document that's going through multiple rounds of internal federal agency review. And it's gone out for public comment. And so hopefully we'll see that finalized and debut in June of this year. I wanted to just give a little bit of a sneak peek on what is going to be included in this national strategy. And really the overarching theme is that the national strategy is being put together to harness the power of eDNA to explore, map, monitor, and understand aquatic life to sustain and restore biological resources into the future. The three key pillars of the national strategy, I would say, actually sound quite similar to the three pillars of the Molecular Methods Workgroup, which is to coordinate and communicate efforts to integrate eDNA into decision-making, building capacity, infrastructure, and research enterprise needed to employ eDNA technology at the large scale, and then also to characterize aquatic life in U.S. waters. So when we think about this national eDNA strategy, it's natural to say then, like, what does it mean for me here in California? If I'm not at a federal agency, like, how will this trickle down into what's important for me and my monitoring programs? And so thinking about this, there are a couple of key areas where I believe the national strategy will have impacts on California and some of our monitoring priorities. In particular, there's going to be this task team that's going to be focused at a national scale on aligning eDNA methods towards standardization across both federal and state and local agencies and the different geographic regions that they cover. So this task team will be focused on identifying what some of those best practices are for sampling and analyses, determining which eDNA methods are best fit for purpose and where they fall on what we consider to be our method readiness scale. So some methods are ready for routine adoption and implementation. Some might need additional research and testing before they're ready for that adoption. So having some consensus on what method readiness is nationally would really help eliminate some of the confusion around eDNA methods and streamline their adoption. Similarly, implementation guidelines. So if you want to get started on eDNA-based methods, how might you go about doing that? And what sorts of key elements do you need to consider from a quality control perspective as well? Additionally, I'm optimistic that the eDNA national strategy will also result in kind of a catalyzation of movement towards further development of DNA reference libraries, just like we're doing here in California already. Hopefully some improvement in the availability of commercial labs for DNA sequencing and analyses. If we have more and more users, it'll increase the availability, hopefully, and the scale of some of these public-private partnerships for building out these commercial labs so that the tools become more and more available to different monitoring programs who have different resources available to them. And then also encouraging investments in technology development, such as things like automated platforms for eDNA method collection. So that's something that we hear on a wish list of a lot of the monitoring programs that we talk to. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have a person out there collecting them, if we had some automated methods for doing it? Again, increasing temporal and spatial scales that will be able to collect these samples and ask questions about biology and how they're changing over time. So I'm hopeful that with this eDNA national strategy, we'll really see kind of a kickstart in some of that technology development that'll help advance the science even further. One other thing that I wanted to highlight is even just in the next 2 weeks, there's going to be a Capitol Hill briefing on the eDNA national strategy. And so that is to promote awareness among agencies and representatives on this forthcoming eDNA strategy, and also discuss the eDNA research and implementation priorities that are laid out in the strategy. And what's neat is that the panelists that are going to be part of this discussion at Capitol Hill are all from California institutions. So right now we have representatives from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, and then me from SCWRP. So I'll be at this briefing as well. And so I think it's so telling that California is really highlighted here because we have been such a leader in eDNA method development and standardization. And that's why we've been so involved in the development of the national strategy. And now we're being looked to serve on this Capitol Hill briefing and really talk about how we've been helping to move these methods forward in California, and how that can serve as an example for other agencies and states as well. So just as like a little bit of a recap for this national eDNA strategy and how what to expect moving forward. So as I mentioned, it's been a couple years now that it's been in development. We've had a publication, we had a briefing at Capitol Hill Ocean Week last year. There's going to be another eDNA panel at Capitol Hill Ocean Week this June as well. There's going to be the 3rd national workshop on eDNA that's going to be in Washington, D.C. this June. And then hopefully, if the strategy is officially greenlit, this year, then they'll move forward into what's called the implementation plan that will have some of the nuts and bolts of research priorities and the key elements of how to implement that national strategy over the next couple of years. Okay, so I just wanted to end on kind of like forward looking. So this has really been a whirlwind tour of what we've been doing with the Molecular Methods Workgroup and how it links into a lot of national efforts as well over the past 6 years. But this was my chance to kind of dream up what I would really love to see the Molecular Methods Workgroup focusing on in the next few years as well. I think so far, the work group has been doing a great job as serving as a clearinghouse for eDNA methods and best practices. And that was one of our primary goals, was increasing this eDNA literacy and familiarity. And I think it has really been a success. And it's been really great to see that user community grow and have these monthly meetings that are bringing everyone together and making people hopefully feel more comfortable and confident in eDNA-based methods and what they might offer to their monitoring programs. And so now I think we're really poised to see eDNA-based methods transition from research to implementation for informing management action. So we have a couple of great examples of this happening, such as the digital PCR methods that have been implemented for beach water quality monitoring here in California. And then abroad in the UK, there's a qPCR-based method that's used routinely for looking for the endangered great crested newt. And for both of these cases, there's a requirement that we have a formal standard method that folks are using, either certified via ISO International Standards Organization or something like ELAP here in California, and then having associated intercalibration exercises and proficiency testing schema that ensure that once you have a standard protocol, it's being implemented correctly and we have the correct quality controls in place. I feel like a lot of biomonitoring programs that we work with and that are part of the Molecular Methods Workgroup are in many ways like chomping at the bit, wanting to see another one of these eDNA-based methods graduate essentially into a standard protocol that then has an official lab accreditation procedure associated with it so that the information being collected can be used for informing management action. And so I think California can set the standard yet again. And that if we have these multiple user programs and monitoring programs that are ready to be adopting these eDNA-based methods, the Molecular Methods Workgroup is a great place to go and find those excited participants for something like an intercalibration exercise. And if it comes through a grassroots effort through the Molecular Methods Workgroup, if it's part of the intertidal reference library efforts, or if it's through a different monitoring program that can kind of serve as an example for how we can further advance these eDNA-based methods, I think that'll be really exciting and will benefit a number of the folks part of the Molecular Methods Workgroup and the number of the monitoring programs across California at large. So I'm excited to hopefully see some of those efforts develop over the course of the next few years. And I think it's a really exciting time for California to have an opportunity to be a leader here yet again. And so that's just to wrap up. I think, this has been a real success having this work group, thanks to the council. And I know it's been a real joy for me to get to know a number of folks across California all working on eDNA-based methods. And it's been an exciting time this year in particular with the advent of the national strategy and the recognition at the national scale that California has really figured a lot of this out and how important it is to collaborate on eDNA methods development. And so I'm really looking forward to how the national strategy is going to further highlight California and its efforts, and how it's going to provide some additional opportunities for advancing these methods towards implementation for routine monitoring and informing management action. So I will stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Susie, for everything you've done. It's only as big of a success due to your passion and your hard work to keep this work group, to first develop the work group and then to keep it meeting and developing the agendas. You are a rock star, so thank you. It wouldn't be as successful as it is without you. Any questions for Susie about eDNA, where it's going? I know that there's I think it's internal only, but there's an April 29th webinar, kind of eDNA 101 for those that are kind of newer to it. I'm not sure if it's open to the public or not. Do you know, Susie? Is that meant for just water boards
I think
folks?
it's meant for water boards. Lindsay
Okay.
Metz from CMAP will be leading that. I know Chad Laughlin from San Diego Regional Water Board and I will both be presenting. So
Yeah.
we can definitely let you know.
Yeah, I'll touch base with Lindsay, who's in our office, and see if I can broadcast that more broadly to folks that are maybe newer to the eDNA and don't know the nuts and bolts, like aren't experts like Susie, but so that could be of value. The question in there, is there availability to Duncan, do you want to just come off mute and ask your question? I think he's asking about the availability.
Oh, public labs for testing? I can
Yeah.
take a stab at that. Yes, for sure, Duncan. There are commercial labs that will accept any user sample, and they can perform usually both qPCR, sometimes digital PCR, and DNA metabarcode sequencing. I think a lot of university labs will sometimes be restricted to just academic users, but there are commercial labs as well. And if you go to, there's a group called the eDNA Collaborative that's based out of University of Washington, and I believe they have a website that lists a number of commercial facilities if folks were interested, or if you were a monitoring program or a citizen scientist group that had eDNA samples that you wanted to get analyzed. Those are some of the public commercial labs that are available.
Okay, I mean, you indicated that it was quite cost effective, which is really interesting. I'm obviously interested for local, as in Southern California.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we use one based in Los Angeles called Largen. And so I had just sent, there had been a question about potential costs. And so we're usually seeing sometimes an order of magnitude cost savings based in comparison to traditional based methods. But there's quite a range depending on if you're doing an analysis like qPCR or if you're doing DNA metabarcode sequencing, and if you are doing the bioinformatics, or if you're going to have to contract that out as well. We generally quote somewhere between $50 and $150 per sample, but that will vary widely depending on how many taxa you want to sequence or how many probes you're using for your targeted approaches. But if anybody has a question on that, you can always feel free to email me, and I'm happy to chat about that. Grant, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation, Susie. My question to you is really, is there anything you and the work group need from the monitoring council? Anything we can do to support you and this great work that you and the work group are doing? And thank you for doing it, by the way.
That's great. Thanks, Grant. So one thing I always ask for is just participation in the molecular methods work group. And so whenever we can have folks, and it takes time, right? It takes staff time to go to these meetings or participate in our webinars. But it's really important to have kind of that like critical mass to be building consensus when we're developing something like a best practice document. So anytime that there can be like staff time devoted to participating in the monthly meetings or participating in like reviewing the documents that we've put together, that's just so valuable in having more of like a diverse community coming together to have a consensus driven document that we're putting together. Then one of the other things is just, reaching out to me or other folks that are involved in the work group. If there's anyone that's interested in eDNA and doesn't know where to get started, it's my favorite thing to talk about. And, and so the more folks that we have testing out the methods, the better the feedback is that we get too. So I could talk at another point about some of the examples of with the Bite Regional Monitoring Program, we've been asking them to test out a couple of different water filtration methods because which one works best for you will vary depending on what sort of time you have out on a boat or what sort of lab facilities you have available as well. Getting that feedback is really critical for us and helps streamline the adoption of the method. So really just having people participate in those sorts of activities and test driving the methods really gives us like the best kind of feedback that we can so that we can tailor it to different folks' needs. So yeah. Awesome. Christine, go for it.
Hi, Susie.
Hi,
Thanks so much for that presentation. I just wanted to let everyone know that we're at the ready here at California eLab to offer the method as long as there's a standardization of it and an SOP that we can ensure that we're evaluating labs across laboratories and there's consistency. We've done that with the microplastics methods that SCORP developed for Division of Drinking Water for testing microplastics in drinking water. And we accredited that lab that you mentioned earlier for ddPCR in the county of San Diego. So we're at the ready. There just has to be a regulatory need, has to be required in some sort of permit policy or order. But thanks for that presentation. That was great.
Thank you, Christine. We get, whenever I'm in these national meetings, we get a lot of jealousy that California has an eLab. And there's a lot of other folks who wish that they had a mechanism to be standardizing these methods. So I think it positions us well. So it's exciting.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Great. Eric, go for it.
Susie, I was wondering if you have coordinated at all with the EPA NARS group, the National Product Resource Surveys, because they are starting to do metagenomics sampling with these surveys. And
yes, I have a few work groups that I'm on with them. So we have one that's actually specifically focused on the stream benthic algae eDNA sampling. And so the folks who are part of the NARS program, where they've been collecting benthic algae DNA samples for the past couple of years, and they use a method that's very similar to the one we use in California. And they independently started doing DNA sequencing, and we were doing DNA sequencing as well. And then about 2 years ago, we came together and we said, before we get too far, we want to make sure we're aligned. And so we've been having kind of an ad hoc bi-weekly meeting. We get together and we talk about our method approaches for DNA metabarcode sequencing of benthic algae and then biological index development using that DNA sequence data. So we work really closely with them on that. But then more officially, we're now both part of an international, let me see if I can get the acronym right, IESTF, International eDNA Standardization Task Force. That's what it is. And it's a group of 10 of us, I believe, that are working on developing an ISO standard for algae DNA benthic metabarcoding. That is in its infancy. The effort just came together over the past 6 months. But the vision is that we essentially draft an ISO standard and then it goes up to one of the ISO, I think, biodiversity work groups. And then they might use that as a template for developing a sampling and extraction protocol. So it's nice to see kind of this like ad hoc group that we had come together now be like a formalized ISO working group, but it's in its infancy. So hopefully some updates on that over the course of the next year. But yeah, we've been working really closely with them. It's been great.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me over email. And I'm always happy to chat more about either our research or what the Molecular Methods Workgroup is doing. So
Thanks,
thanks,
Susie.
Nick.
Thanks so much. All right. So that brings us to our final item, which is really just planning for our June 27th meeting agenda. We talked a little bit. Make sure I'm not on mute. Yeah, I'm not. A little bit about ocean acidification and hypoxia modeling and monitoring, which has been, again, a topic for the better part of a year, but the timing either wasn't right or the right people weren't available. So I think that's a potential topic still. That was originally brought up by Lorian, and then kind of +1 by Steve, by some of the research being happening and some of the reports that are coming out. If that's the way we want to go, that's great. We can I can work with Steve and Jen and some others that are within that space to develop some talks for June. If not, then I'm open to other ideas. We could speak now, or I can reach back out afterwards. But it's an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit more. Lorian, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is a bill moving through the legislature right now that would require wastewater, well, a pilot for the Department of Public Health to do a pilot of wastewater-based surveillance for illicit substances. So
I saw that. Yeah.
from the success of wastewater-based surveillance of pathogens. And so I think it would be really interesting to arrange some presentations about the state of the science of that kind of work. And I could do some research to figure out who appropriate speakers would be. And so I think that ocean acidification modeling and monitoring is very timely and should be prioritized for June. And this other work isn't necessarily time sensitive, but I know you like to have a backlog of ideas. So
I do. That's a great one. Thank you. And that piggybacks a little bit on that we had a subcommittee at one point doing wastewater-based epidemiology and surveillance. So I think that there's still probably a level of contacts there, but it's a great topic. I remember seeing that that bill come across for review. So great. Any other ideas?
I just had a question. Will that be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., Nick?
It depends. I mean, I have the whole day held.
It's
but
virtual though, right?
It will be virtual because I think based on what I'm hearing, and I'm not as high of a level as Greg, obviously, but like that this budget isn't going to remedy itself in one cycle, that this budget restrictions for travel and for ability to help fund travel for our other council members to attend an in-person meeting is not going to be coming for the next couple of years. So until we kind of figure out another, I don't know, another solution, it's going to be virtual for at least this year, unfortunately, which is too bad.
Well, thanks. I didn't have it on my calendar, so I blocked the whole day.
Oh, you don't have it on your calendar? Do I have the date right? I think it's June 27th.
Could be me. So
Okay.
I'll let him know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Any other, it's a chance just to voice a potential topic for the other council members. Otherwise, I can reach out. But it sounds like ocean acidification and the hypoxia modeling is a good one to pursue now. The timing is good. So I'm going to work on that. But I'll put another call out as a follow-up to see if there's any other ideas for, future meetings. It's always good, like Lorian mentioned, to have a backlog of ideas. And if something comes up in the meantime, just feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, you can end early, you get an extra hour. I appreciate everybody turning out. It was a great turnout. It was great seeing you guys. Or you all, sorry, I gotta break that habit. Seeing you all in 2024, and Karen did pop on a little bit late at 11 and wanted to iterate her regrets for missing her time slot, but she'll probably make an appearance at our next meeting to kind of give her gratitude to this council and say a couple other parting words. But go ahead, Lorian. Oh, no, put it back. No, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, one question about the travel restrictions. I don't know how popular this would be, but I know a lot of folks are in Sacramento or nearby. Would it be possible to occasionally have hybrid meetings in Sacramento, and those who can come do, and those who cannot just join in remotely?
That's definitely an option, and that's something that I've been kind of playing around with, trying to be with the mind of being inclusive and not leaving folks out that aren't in the area. I'm gonna put my head together with Greg and maybe talk a little bit more, and Jen as well, just to kind of feel out what they think about that idea, because that is an option. There are a significant amount of people in Sacramento, but there's also a significant amount of people that aren't. So it's just a matter of how to best navigate that while making people still feel included and have an equal kind of part in it. But I have been toying around with different ideas, so I just need to kind of figure out what the best path is. So I do appreciate your willingness to travel from the Bay Area, though. That's big. Okay, well, thank you again. Have a great weekend, and this recording should be up on our YouTube list, and I'll send a little note out with a link probably by the end of the day. But everybody, have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good seeing everyone.
Thank you.